We discussed a bit, but for my art understanding, when an artist says it is artwork, this is artwork. So this thing between advertising and artwork is what is contemporary art. It is the problematic, but it is also really contemporary art. Therefore, for me, it's not so clear how we could actually attack this problem, because Richard Pins actually allows LV to have its logo appearing within his work. So is this really advertising? I thought maybe Richard Pins deep down might be telling us another story, but that was something that artistic narrative. Lu Cheng has been doing something very spectacular, and that is providing guided tours.
Guided tours, wow.
Right. It was giving an alternative description or interpretation of the things that were already existing and wandering away from the official interpretation. And his idea about West Kowloon, for example, is that if all the audience are active enough to think and know how to actually control the interpretation of the artwork, then we're not worried about what it appears, for we can always hijack and give it our own interpretation to it. This is the response that actually this mentality, if we could develop within the audience, then whatever comes, we might be able to lend use of that resource for.
So maybe one thing would be to make the spaces as hijackable as possible.
It was not the space itself. The more security patrol or something, the more paradox that will involve and demonstrate itself. It was really the mentality of the people to know that art is not something that's what the official narrative told you is, and that's all. You could always give other symbolic meanings to it, or you as an audience in contemporary art could be more actively engaged to change.
So what kind of idea of public space is this that you're talking about?
Public space.
Well, you and Lu Cheng and others are talking about. Because it does sound like a notion of public space.
It wasn't actually tied to space, but the kind of mentality,
or public art in a way.
Public art in Hong Kong is very distorted. You place a sculpture in Hong Kong in the public space. But so it was the live use of space that's count, not what's actually the hardware is, especially the mentality whether people really want to use that space.
The thing is, you've got to have the spaces used as much as possible, clearly, and you've got to. I mean, you could think of one kind of, a music, a space for kind of some combination of kind of pop and kind of more soundscape art. You could think of, like you say, a literature space or literature museum type space. I particularly like the Walter Benjamin almost museum in Walter Benjamin in Charlottenburg in Germany. With little squiggly manuscripts, but you could it's still a fascinating space where you could imagine Chinese, Hong Kongese, and other kinds of literature together. What about the mixture of built space and open space? Because there's people are thinking about should it be 70% built and 30% built and 70% open. I mean, and also in that context, I know that, I don't know, you might not have seen the various plans for it, but for example, the OMA plan, at least in the short term, is really, it's not an architecture plan, it's an urbanism plan. Unlike, I think, the others are more architecture plans. Or the Foster thing with a bit of iconic architecture in the middle and then looking out to the sea. I mean, what kind of city, what kind of city could be set up inside West Kowloon? What kind of density should it be like Kowloon itself with its kind of huge density? Should it be kind of empty? Yeah, or as empty as possible. And in terms of putting down buildings and things down in empty space. I mean, what kind of density should it be?
I thought it could be both ways. It depends really on the architect and the urban planning, what idea, and if that ideas will work. But from my first impressions, I thought vast space wasn't good for it because it was already somewhere extended into the waterfront that it's not easy to go access to. So
what space, sorry?
It was already far off from the present activity zones in Kowloon.
Of course it is, yeah.
So what could actually draw people there? I thought if it doesn't have any other side activities happening or for people to engage with, then it will just be a cultural center that is only active when programs are there. So I have really no idea how much density it should be. But for example, if you consider the whole West Kowloon district, why this was reclaimed land, it was planned because it wants us to give more recreation space for the West Kowloon citizen. However, because of the region, the planning, it was already split off between the older district and the new district, and the new district is often so much development based into shopping arcades, and so it blocks off already a very different kind of audience or users. And so if it is really to be serving the people, I thought the old idea that anywhere, even for a place with so good sea view, maybe it should be a mixture of different classes. Maybe it should be a place that demonstrates that different classes should share the same valuable land, so that maybe a little bit other housing estates or something should be built so that there is really a mix of class. But I am not so sure, but this is too idealistic because it will be another surrounded island that the lower income certainly will go into the shopping arcades, etc. So it's quite difficult for the present planning already to change it into another class that's been assigned to that.
Because Hong Kong's got such a big class difference. So compared to Chongqing, where people are so much has got right across the classes together. Hong Kong's a big difference, doesn't it, between upper class and poorer people?
Previously, the government plans to have mixed housing for different class within the zone, but for West Kowloon it's really an extreme, and there is a saying that it will only be another cup house for all those high class residents to use. West Kowloon could turn into that cup house.
But there'll also be a big number of mainland Chinese coming through because of the railway. Coming from Guangzhou and Shenzhen especially. That'll be a big factor.
That could be, for example, why I have this expectation about Hong Kong and M+ could do something is that Hong Kong still, if they are withstanding their professionalism, then maybe this is really the only cultural platform that you could speak what you want and be the cultural platform that's you could utilize the press freedom, the free speech in Hong Kong to do cultural stuff that you couldn't do in mainland.
No.
But however, only if I M+ or something, then even a contemporary art space is not always for such kind of experimental directions.